She was 22 years old, a small-town girl from Alton, Illinois, with a smile that could light up a room. Friends say she was finally at peace, finally happy. After years of searching for stability, she had found it, in her own little apartment, decorating it for the life she was about to bring into the world. Her name was Liese Dodd, and she was 8 months pregnant, just a few weeks away from meeting her baby girl. Her mom, Heidi, said she called almost every day to talk about baby names, to ask about stroller colors, to laugh about how she couldn't stop craving ice cream. She was young, excited, and full of dreams. But on June 9th, 2022, everything changed. That morning, Alton police received a call from a worried mother. She hadn't heard from her daughter in days. No texts, no calls, no updates about the baby. And deep down, she knew something was wrong. When officers arrived at Liese's apartment on Boulevard Street, they expected to find a young mother resting, maybe busy preparing for the birth. But when they stepped through the door, what they found inside would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Detectives later described it as one of the most disturbing crime scenes they had ever seen. A scene that no one, not even the most seasoned investigator, could forget. Inside that small apartment, surrounded by the quiet remains of a life once full of hope, they discovered Liese's body. Her baby's nursery sat unfinished just a few feet away. And outside, in a nearby dumpster, officers made a discovery so horrifying, it shocked even the most hardened members of the Alton Police Department. She had been decapitated. Her unborn child, gone with her. The man responsible wasn't a stranger. He wasn't some faceless killer in the dark. He was someone she once loved. Her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Dondrea S. Holloway. A man who, in the eyes of her family, had stolen not one life, but two. This isn't just another murder. It's a story about control, about obsession, about a love that turned into something deadly. Because when Liese finally tried to break free, he made sure she never could. On that night, I received a life sentence, said Liese's mother, Heidi, to live the rest of my life without my beautiful, loving, compassionate daughter. This is the story of a young woman who had everything to look forward to, a mother-to-be whose future was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. And a case so disturbing, it could have been an episode of 48 Hours. The murder of Liese Dodd, the love that turned into a nightmare. Before the world knew her name for tragedy, she was simply Liese, a daughter, a friend, a soon-to-be mother. Born and raised in Alton, Illinois, Liese Dodd was known for her kindness. Friends said she had a calming presence, the kind of person who made you feel safe just by being around her. She had a bright laugh, an easy smile, and an energy that made people believe better things were coming. Her mom, Heidi Noel, described her as loving, funny, and full of light. She said Liese could walk into a room and instantly lift everyone's spirits. She wasn't loud or demanding. She was gentle, thoughtful, and always thinking about others before herself. Liese had big dreams, but her biggest dream of all was becoming a mom. When she found out she was pregnant, she told her family she finally felt complete. The news brought joy, not just to her, but to everyone around her. Her mom said it was the happiest she had ever seen her daughter. Liese would talk about her baby constantly, what she might look like, what name she'd choose, how she would decorate the nursery. Her social media was filled with excitement, pictures of tiny baby clothes, ultrasound scans, and soft pink blankets she had picked out for her daughter. She was counting the days until she could hold her baby in her arms. She was 8 months pregnant. Only a few weeks from her due date, she had already picked a name. Her family was planning a baby shower. Her mom was helping her organize the final touches, a pastel-colored celebration full of love and laughter. Heidi said her daughter was finally at peace, happy, stable, and looking forward to a fresh start. After a few difficult years, Liese had her own place, a supportive family, and a new purpose. She wanted to raise her baby in a safe, loving home. She talked about enrolling in classes again, maybe finding a better job once the baby arrived. Her future was wide open. Everything she wanted was right in front of her. But no one, not her family, not her friends, could have known how little time she had left. Because while Liese was planning a baby shower, someone else was planning something far darker. Her mother's words now carry a weight they were never meant to have. She was so excited to meet her baby, Heidi later said, her voice breaking. She had her whole life ahead of her, and it was all taken away. Liese Dodd's story should have ended with joy, with a birth, not a death. But the peace she had found was short-lived, and what followed would become one of the most disturbing crimes Illinois had seen in years. When people who knew Liese talk about her relationship, they describe it the same complicated. It wasn't always bad. In the beginning, she thought she had finally found someone who understood her. His name was DeAndrea S. Holloway, a 25-year-old man from Litchfield, Illinois. He could be charming when he wanted to be, soft-spoken, polite, even funny. To outsiders, he seemed like a regular boyfriend. But to those close to Liese, there were signs that something wasn't right. Their relationship stretched over about 2 years, an on and off cycle that her friends later said felt exhausting. One week they were posting happy photos together, and the next Liese was distant and quiet. She would disappear for a few days, then return acting as if nothing had happened. Her family noticed how her confidence had started to fade. Her mother, Heidi, said that at first, Liese defended him whenever anyone expressed concern. She thought she could fix him, one relative recalled, but over time it became harder to ignore the emotional storms that surrounded him. Holloway was known to have a temper. Neighbors remembered shouting late at night, arguments that ended with slammed doors. Police would later describe him as unpredictable, sometimes calm, sometimes explosive. People who met him said he could change in an instant. Like many abusive relationships, it didn't start violent. At first, he was protective, almost too protective, wanting to know where she was, who she talked to, when she'd be home. It might have seemed caring at first, but soon it turned controlling. Every time she tried to set a boundary, he found a way to cross it. Friends said Liese had started to pull away in the months before her death. She wanted to focus on her baby, not on the constant drama. She told her mom she was done with him, that she wanted peace, stability, a fresh start. She had just moved into her own apartment, ready to raise her daughter on her own. But Holloway didn't want to let her go. Each time she left, he would come back, apologizing, promising to change. And each time, she gave him one more chance, because that's what kind people do. According to police reports, their final breakup happened only weeks before the murder. Liese had made it clear she was moving on. She was excited about her baby shower, about life after him. But for Holloway, that separation became an obsession. He began calling again, showing up unexpectedly, trying to get her attention. To him, if he couldn't have her, no one would. It's a pattern that's heartbreakingly familiar in many domestic violence cases. The moment the victim decides to leave is often the moment the abuser becomes most dangerous. And in June 2022, when Liese finally decided to cut all ties, she couldn't have known that decision would cost her life. June 9th, 2022. For most people in Alton, Illinois, it was a quiet summer afternoon. But for Heidi Noel, it was the day her entire world fell apart. Her daughter, Liese Dodd, was 22 years old, kind, hopeful, and only a few weeks away from giving birth. They had just been planning her baby shower. Liese had even picked a theme, soft pastels and teddy bears. She was so excited to be a mom. But that morning, something felt off. Liese hadn't answered her mom's texts. Calls went straight to voicemail. At first, Heidi tried to stay calm. Maybe her daughter was napping or busy running errands. But as the hours passed, the silence grew heavier. By evening, the worry turned into fear. Heidi decided to drive over to Liese's apartment on Bolivar Street, a small, peaceful neighborhood in Alton where everyone knew each other. She parked outside and knocked. No answer. She called her daughter's name. Still silence. That's when she called Alton police to request a welfare check, something she'd never imagined she would have to do. When officers arrived, they walked into what looked like a normal apartment from the outside. But inside, nothing could have prepared them for what they found. The moment they stepped through the door, they knew something was wrong. The home was quiet, too quiet. There were signs of a struggle, shattered belongings, things knocked over. And then they found her. Liese Dodd's body was discovered inside the apartment. She had been brutally murdered. One officer later said it was one of the most disturbing scenes he had ever witnessed. Even hardened investigators stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. But the nightmare didn't end there. Just a short distance from the apartment, behind the building, in a trash dumpster, police made another discovery, something beyond imagination. Inside, they found Liza's severed head. It was a level of cruelty that left even the most experienced detectives shaken. A young woman and her unborn baby had been taken in a moment of unthinkable violence. As word spread through Alton, disbelief turned into heartbreak. Neighbors gathered outside, some crying, some lighting candles. They couldn't understand how something so horrific could happen in their quiet town. That night, every major news outlet picked up the story. Headlines read, "Pregnant woman found murdered in Alton." 22-year-old victim identified as Liese Dodd. Police launch manhunt for suspect. Reporter voice faintly in background. Authorities say the suspect, DeAndrea Holloway, was last seen in the area and is considered armed and dangerous. Heidi's daughter, the little girl she once held in her arms, was gone, and the man who had promised to love her had turned into a monster. In the days that followed, the small city of Alton, Illinois, was wrapped in heartbreak. People who had never even met Liese Dodd couldn't stop thinking about her. The young woman who had been so full of life, so close to becoming a mother. Outside her apartment on Bolivar Street, flowers, teddy bears, and candles began to appear. Neighbors, friends, and strangers gathered quietly, some crying, some praying, all trying to make sense of what had happened. Her mother, Heidi Noel, was living through what she later described as a nightmare that never ends. In interviews, she said, "On that night, I received a life sentence. I'll never be the same again." She spoke about her daughter with a trembling voice, remembering Lisa's laughter, her gentle heart, and her excitement to meet her baby girl. The baby even had a name. Heidi said they were planning to hang her name on the nursery wall the weekend after she was killed. Instead of decorating for a baby shower, Heidi had to plan a funeral, not just for her daughter, but for her unborn grandchild, a little girl who would never take her first breath. At the candlelight vigil held days later, hundreds gathered at Rock Springs Park. Friends shared stories about Lisa, how she loved to laugh, how she dreamed of becoming a nurse, and how she never lost her kindness, even when life got hard. Someone released a cluster of pink and white balloons into the evening sky, one for Liese and one for her baby. As they floated upward, the crowd stood in silence. Some whispered prayers, others whispered her name. For many in Alton, the tragedy changed something deep within the community. People started speaking out more about domestic violence, about the warning signs, the red flags, and the importance of reaching out for help. A GoFundMe was launched to help with funeral costs, and donations poured in from across the country. Messages of love and condolences filled social media. No mother should ever have to go through this. Rest in peace, sweet Lisa and baby girl. Even police officers, hardened by years of seeing tragedy, admitted this case had broken them. Chief Marcos Pulido, his voice cracking, said, "This young woman's life was brutally taken, but we will make sure her voice is heard." For Heidi, life after June 9th has been about finding strength she didn't know she had. She visits Lisa's grave often, bringing flowers, talking softly to both her daughter and her grandchild. She says she does it to feel close to them, to remind herself that love never really ends, even when everything else does. A mother's heart, forever broken. A daughter and grandchild, forever remembered. In loving memory of Liese Dodd and her unborn baby girl. The tragedy of Liese Dodd will never be erased. But from the darkness of her final hours emerged a spark of hope, one that now drives change across her hometown and beyond. In the months that followed her death, Lisa's family turned their grief into action. With the help of friends and supporters, they donated $5,000 to the Oasis Women's Center, a local nonprofit that helps survivors of domestic violence. They also gave baby clothes and other items in Lisa's memory, honoring the child she never met. The story of her life and her brutal end lit a spotlight on how deadly toxic relationships can become. Local organizations reported a rise in referrals for high-risk intimate partner violence. Outside of courtrooms and news studios, communities rallied to say no more silence. Today, groups like the Illinois Coalition Against Domestic Violence continue their work statewide, offering services, legal advocacy, and support for victims in Illinois. Liese's story serves as a warning and a call to action. If you feel trapped, if you recognize those warning signs in yourself or someone you love, help is out there. People come into these situations thinking the love will conquer all. Sometimes the only way out is asking for help, because in the end, Lisa's voice matters. Her joy, her future, the baby she carried, they were stolen. But her legacy lives on through donations, through awareness, through safe exits from dangerous relationships. Her mother, Heidi, said, "I wish she would have known how loved she was." That wish is now becoming a promise, that no one else will ever feel the aloneness her daughter endured. Because while justice may bring a sentence, it cannot bring back a life. But together we can build a future where no one else is lost like she was. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, USA 24/7. You are not alone.